Welcome back to the vlog. I went to Vegas for a week in order to film a bunch of awesome vlogs. Turns out I wasn't allowed to film anywhere, but I'm back at it. I'm going to be putting out a lot more great content as usual. And the first hand I pick up is Ace King under the gun. There's a straddle on the pot, and I have bought in for $300. I decided since I'm under the gun with the straddle, I'm going to bump it up to $20. I probably should have sized up a little larger since I'm out of position, but the low jack calls, the hijack makes the call, the big blind calls, and then the button comes along as well. So we're going 5 ways to the flop with $100 in the pot. The dealer puts out the flop, 8-5 ace, and the big blind decides to lead out for $10. Very interesting, but I'm not going to let him get away with that. I decide to bump it up, make it 50. It folds around to the hijack, who thinks about it for a little while before deciding to commit all of his chips, $138. He's all in. I have nothing else to do when it folds around to me except for to call. It's only $88 more. And I make the call. I put it about 50-50 whether I'm ahead or behind. He could have ace queen. He could also have ace 5. The turn, though, is great. The king of diamonds. The river is the 4 of diamonds. I think I've probably pulled ahead until he flips over pocket 8s for the flop set. I'm starting off the day not doing so hot with what I thought was going to be a nice scoop, but it's okay. We're going to continue on to the next hand. I top back up to $300. This method has been working really well. I really appreciate you guys for recommending it. It took me a little bit of bravery to do this, put a bunch of extra money on the line, but it really is effective in capitalizing on the good hands when you get them. The next hand I get is Jack 8 of spades. I'm in middle position and there's a straddle on the pot. I limped in, and then the hijack decides to make it $36, and a lot of people want to play the button, the big blind, the under the gun player all call, and I decided to get a little wild. I just ship it all in. There's $192 already in the pot. If I get one player to call me, no matter what he has, still have pretty good odds with the amount of money that's in the pot right now. I didn't want to call and see a flop with this many players, and if I'm going to 3-bet, I might as well ship it all in. It folds around until we get to the big blind, who decides to go all in as well for his $186. There's $564 at stake, and hopefully we get a good run out. The dealer puts out the flop, 10-8. I hit the middle pair, which can't be that bad, but the turn is the ace of diamonds. Super scary card. The river is the 2 of diamonds. He called me, so I show first, and my 8 turned out to be good. I'm scooping a $564 pot. We're headed in the right direction after a little bit of craziness. I have $584 in my stack, and the next hand I looked down at is Ace King offsuit under the gun. The first time I got Ace King under the gun this session, I bumped it up to 20, and almost everyone called. Hopefully I can just limp this time, and someone will raise it up, and I can 3-bet him. I call the $6. The middle position player calls, the low jack calls, the small blind calls, the big blind calls, and then unfortunately the button checks. So we are going 6 ways to the flop with $36 in the pot. Not what I wanted. The dealer puts out the flop, 5-5-10. No good for me. I do have a backdoor club draw to the second nuts, and the big blind bumps it up to $10, and I'm just going to go ahead and make the call. Only $10 to make us $56 pot. The middle position player calls and the low jack calls. We're going 4 ways to the turn with $76 in the pot, and the dealer puts out the 6 of clubs. I'm now 1 card away from the second nut flush, and it checks around to the middle position player, who bumps it up to 20. The low jack makes the call. The big blind makes a call again, and I'm just going to go ahead and call $56 in the pot, and the dealer puts out the king of spades. Not the card I was necessarily looking for, but a great card for me nonetheless. Still, with this many players in the pot, I'm just going to check and try to get the showdown. The middle position player is having none of it. He grabs a handful of chips, shuffles them around before deciding on betting $50. It folds around to the big blind, who decides it's time to raise it up. He makes it $120 to go, and with this much action, the bet and the raise, I just think there's no way my king is good, so I go ahead and fold. It turns out to be the correct fold, of course, because king 5 is shown for the full house. I fold around a bunch more hands until I pick up ace queen in the cutoff. There's 2 limpers ahead of me, and I bump it up to $15. Maybe I should have sized up a little more. The button makes the call, the under the gun player makes the call, and so does the hijack. We're going to the flop 4 ways with $64 in the pot, and the dealer puts out queen 5 king. I hit my second pair. It's pretty good, but not that great with the king on the board. The hijack makes it 15. I'm going to call, and the button makes the call as well. We're going 3 ways to the turn with $109 in the pot, and the turn comes the 3 of hearts. When it checks to me, I sense weakness in the original better, and so I make it $40, hoping to take down the pot. The button makes the call for another $40, and we're headed to the river, which is the 10 of clubs. I decide to check, and the button checks behind. He flips over 3-5 for the 2 pair. He flopped the flush draw, turned the 2 pair. He's going to take that one down. The next hand that I look at is ace-5 of hearts under the gun. I have $478 in my stack. I could bump it up, but I'm just going to limp. The middle position player limps, the button limps, the small blind makes the call, and the big blind checks. We're headed to the flop 3 ways with $15 in the pot, and the dealer puts out 2, 4, 6, 1 heart. I have a gut shot straight draw and a backdoor nut flush draw. I'm going to go ahead and lead out for $15. The small blind raises it up after checking, and I can imagine he has a pretty strong holding. It's only $25 for me to call, and I'm drawing to some very strong hands. I'm going to go ahead and see the turn. I make the call. Since he probably has a strong holding and my hand would be concealed if I make it, I have some good implied odds. The turn comes the jack of spades, not what we were looking for. My opponent bets $100, and I have no other choice but to fold. My chip stack's down to $435. I'm going backwards. I'm looking to pick up some nice hands and increase my stack. The next hand I look down at is Queen 10 offsuit. I'm in the cutoff. The middle position player limps, the hijack limps, and I'm going to bump this hand up to $13. I'm trying to take advantage of all these limpers with my position and a decent hand, but I was just watching a Doug Polk video, and he says King 10, Queen 10 offsuit are just really not playable. If you hit your 10, it's probably not going to be the top pair on the board, and if you hit your king, or in my case a queen, I'm going to have a really hard kicker to play with. There's a lot of reverse implied odds, which means that I can win a little, but lose a lot. The button makes the call, the small blind, middle position, and hijack all call. We're headed to the flop 5 ways with $68 in the pot, and the dealer puts out Queen, King, 8. This is kind of exactly what he's talking about. I hit my middle pair. I have a crappy kicker, and there's a king on the board, so I'm probably not even good. It checks all the way around. I'm going to give up, and then the turn comes out the 2 of clubs, and when it checks the middle position player, he decides he's going to bet $20, bringing the pot to 88. I see this as a sign of weakness from the entire table. My queen may be good or maybe not, but I don't really want to call. I want to turn my hand into a bluff, and so I'm going to raise it up, make it $75. Bringing the pot to 163. Everyone else folds back to the middle position player, and he decides he wants to let his hand go as well. To just continue our analysis, let's say that our opponent had King 10 offsuit there, no club. It's really hard to continue. There could be clubs that beat you. There could be 2 pairs or sets that beat you. So I think that it's probably better to just start avoiding those hands in the future. Although they look nice, they don't really play nice. It goes on a long time where I have to just fold away a bunch of hands. This is a nice little fold montage. I haven't had one this long in a little while. I finally get pocket queens in the cutoff, $510 in my stack. There's a low jack that raises to 10, the hijack calls, and I'm going to go ahead and bump it up in the cutoff to $40. You got to pay to play against my queens, and people want to pay, and people want to play. The button makes the call for 40. The low jack calls and the hijack all call. We're headed to the flop 4 ways, and we already have $164 in the pot that we're fighting for. This is going to be a good one. The dealer burns and turns, putting out the flop 8, deuce, ace, all diamonds. I hate seeing that ace. We all hate seeing the ace when you got pocket queens or kings, but I do have the queen of diamonds giving me the second nut flush draw. I do have to walk warily though, because the king could be out there. There could already be a made flush. Of course, I assume that when my opponent leads into me for $60, he most likely has an ace, a made flush, or even the king of diamonds. I'm going to go ahead and make the call though. My hand's just too strong at this point to fold, I believe. I could hit a queen, I could hit a diamond. It is still scary though, because even if I hit a queen or a diamond, the queen may not be good to a flush, the diamond may not be good to the king of diamonds, but we still are going to make the call. There's just too much money in the pot to fold for $60. The button comes along as well, and we're headed to the turn 3 ways with $344 in this pot. It's getting big quickly. The turn is the 2 of spades. Not a good card for me, unless I get a queen on the river, then I have a full house. I no longer have to worry about the flush. Still, my opponent checks, and this is my time to pounce. This means he wants to slow down and pot control. I think that if he had a very strong ace, like ace, king, ace, queen, he'd probably bet. And if he had a small made flush, he'd probably bet as well. I'm going to use this opportunity to put in a bet. I do have to be worried about the player to act behind me. I could potentially check and see a free card, but I'd much rather put a bet into a pot rather than having to call a bet. I decided I'm going to go big, $150. It seems like a big number, but really it's only a little bit less than half pot. The first player to act fold, and the player that took initiative on the flop and checked the turn to me goes ahead and decides to make the call as well. He could have a monster, just hoping that I put the rest of my chips in the pot. He could also have a strong ace. Out of all the options, it's unlikely that he has a flush or like the king of diamonds. And so I think that if I hit a queen or a diamond on the river, I'll be good. And I'm going to have to evaluate and see if I want to put in a big all-in jam, and the river comes a 7 of hearts. It's a complete blank. Our hand hasn't improved since pre-flop. We did have a lot of potential, but that potential squandered, and when my opponent checks to me, I could either go all in, or I can just check and give up the hand with my small showdown value. I think that if I was to jam with my $320 left, I think he would call with whatever ace that he called on the turn with. I don't think he has a flush. I don't think he has a full house, but I'm going to go ahead and check and give this one up. Hopefully my queens take it. I flip over my hand. It's no good. My opponent flips over ace 8 of hearts. He flopped the 2 pair. It's a solid hand, and he's going to take the pot. After posting a few blinds, we're down to $304, not where we want to be. We fold away a few hands until we look down at queen 10 of clubs in the small blind. The middle position, low jack and hijack all limp, and the cutoff bet's $20. I'm going to call the small blind. The big blind calls, the middle position player calls, the low jack, the hijack all call. $120 already in the pot. We're headed to the flop 6 ways, and the dealer puts out 10, 3, 10. I've hit 3 of a kind. I've got a great kicker. I'm looking to make some money. There's already a lot in it. It checks around to the cutoff, who bets $80. I'm just going to call. $280 in the pot. Let's see if anyone else wants to play. The middle position player goes all in for $82. The cutoff, and I call for the remaining 2. We're going 3 ways to the turn. One player's all in. $366 in the pot. I still have $206 in my stack. I'm looking to get it all in to more than double up. The turn comes to 9 of hearts. 10-9 is a very possible hand. I'm going to check to my opponent, let him continue betting, and he does. $100. I'm just going to make the call, although I only have 106 behind. I should probably go all in here in case he's on a draw, but it doesn't really matter whether I go all in. He's going to call me anyway. The river comes out, the 4 of clubs. It's blank for all intents and purposes, and I'm just going to go ahead and put my entire chip stack in, $106. He makes the call instantly, $776 in the pot, and I flip over my queen 10, and it is good. I'm scooping a big pot, finally, once again. Over $700 in my stack. I look down at a bunch more hands, lose a few small pots where nothing develops for me on the flop, and I decide I'm going to go home. I rack up my chips to take him to the cage to turn him into cold hard cash. I'm in for $458, out for $665, for a profit of $270. Thanks for watching. Kato out.